Hello, my fellow Alaskans. How are you all out there doing today? It is a beautiful, absolutely beautiful day outside. Gorgeous sunshine everywhere. I am here today with Alaska's candidate, Brenden Carpenter, who is running for Alaska House District 27. And before I bring him up here on the screen, I want to say just a couple things. Take 1 second right now and like and share this video. If you have not liked and shared this video, by the time this video is over with, you are failing us, Alaskans. I mean, literally, you're failing us. You need to do your part. That's how we make sure we keep Alaskans informed on the up and coming elections. Number 2 priority to get out here right now. Open primary and the early voting has begun. As of 2 days ago, you are able to start and go out and do your early voting, either cast your ballot through mail-in or go into one of the precincts that has early voting available and go and cast your ballot. And if you are like most Alaskans out there that have no clue how ranked choice voting works and you have questions, I do suggest you go in and go do your casting of your ballot in person. That way, if you make a mistake, they can give you another one. How simple can that be? And you're going to get all your questions asked and answered right there in person without trying to guess what to do if you get that mail-in ballot. Only the congressional seat is mail-in ranked, or excuse me, is ranked choice voting. The actual primary, the candidate that I'll be talking to here today, Brenden Carpenter, that he is on the primary ballot, and that is the pick one voting that we have, the jungle primary. So on when you go time to vote and you go to pick Brenden Carpenter's name, don't pick anybody else in the district that is on there. That is the name you're going to want to choose. And so that is how we are going to take things off here. I'm going to now bring Brenden onto the screen here with us. And hi, Brenden, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Be with you.
You are brand new to politics. You are just getting into the game. And so let's start this out right now. How about you take a second here and introduce yourself so that we can get to know who you are. And give me just a small second here to refix this just a little bit. I had it set up for a smaller screen on a different setup there. And let's bring you in on yourself there. And why don't you tell everybody out there who's watching who you are, where you're running from. And I say that as in you got your district. Where are this district cover, like Big Lake, Matsu? Where in the Matsu Valley is it? So that the people that are watching know that are you one of those people they need to be paying attention to, because you're in their general area that they are supposed to be voting for. All right. So take it away.
Hello, my name is Brenden Carpenter. I'm from Wasilla. I was born in Alaska, raised in the valley. My District 27 goes basically from Seward Meridian straight down the parks to almost Houston, and on, I guess it would be the north side of the parks, all the way up to the base of Hatcher's Pass, past Schrock a little bit. And on the other side of the parks it butts up to KGB. So it encompasses quite a large area.
Being new to Alaska politics, that is, this being your first year ever running for office, is there, what drove you, what got you excited enough to actually join the rat race, the ugly sausage making process that's going to happen down there in Juneau? What was your inspiration to putting your name out there into the hat and saying, pick me?
So, people that know me would say I'm a little crazy anyway. So, pretty much my whole life growing up here, everybody kind of said, a lot of people have told me that this would be like a path that I'd probably follow. For the last year and a half-ish, there's been quite a few people nudging, subtly pushing, asking me to run, talking about it, and telling me to run. And this particular time, I guess, like everyone else, there was a particular vote that threw me over the edge. Uh, we thought we had a good team of Republicans down there, and then for whatever reason, it was a Republican that, again, we couldn't get a full PFD, even though we had it served up and ready to come. We didn't get it, and I I know dysfunction, and right or wrong, good or bad, his fault, her fault, doesn't matter. There's a lot of dysfunction going on, and I don't like it, and I think I can help fix it. So I threw my hat in, and here I am.
So you're Big Lake. What's all the areas that you cover there? I think Big Lake isn't one of them, but
Big Lake is not one of them. Meadow Lakes, Vine Road, I think. There's a lot of areas.
do you
The
go?
main part of Wasilla is, like if you're in Wasilla,
So
you're in my
KGB,
district.
Vine.
It goes up to KGB. So if you live
Okay.
on the Parks Highway side of KGB, you're probably in my area. Cross the street, you're no longer in District 27.
Now, District 27, isn't that Rep. Eastman's
Eastman
territory?
is the incumbent. That's correct. Eastman is the incumbent. Although we say that, but a lot of the districts are new. They combined some of Kirka's area with some of Eastman's old area to make the new district.
Okay. And
So he remained as the incumbent of that district.
so I've always got, in every interview that I have been doing here lately, I have one question that I always ask right off the bat. November's coming when it's time to do the general election for the actual ranked choice voting. And on that ballot is going to be the question: do we not have a constitutional convention?
Yes.
So I'll take that quick answer there as a
I'm for it, Coach.
you're all for it.
I'm
Why
for it.
are you for it?
I think that with the dysfunction that we've seen, you could pick. It appears you could pick as many Republicans as you want and think we have a majority, and send them down to Juneau, and here we are. Certain things that you would believe would be done aren't, and that's some of the dysfunction that I'm talking about. There's a lot of hot button issues that a lot of Alaskans take to heart, and I think that those are the issues that the people could get done once and for all. That's not to say that the legislators couldn't do that, but we're talking the legislative at a minimum, the legislative session on the road system. We're talking how we get our judges appointed and some other judicial branch changes. Talking enshrining the PFD so they can't touch it again. Those would be the three that I would think could get done by the people. If you send the legislature doesn't have anything to do with that. The Constitution has put that together fairly well and dictated what's going to go on with that. I don't believe all the fear mongering that's going on. Senator Mike Shower, has put together a pretty good. He put together a pretty good speech at Mayor Edna DeVries' class of School of Government on that. So if you get a chance to see that talk, that was really good. He did a really good job with that. I think that the delegates are going to look a lot like the legislature itself. So what is all the fear? If they fear the people doing what the people have a right to do, that ought to tell you something. All the more reason to be for it. So the legislators, you send the right team down to Juneau this election, people that know how to work together will work together. We have the ability to then, once the people do that constitutional convention, with the right team down there that works together, we can make sure that we act accordingly to what was just done and not put it on a back burner, kind of push it aside and not really follow it. We can get it done and start working on it right away. So that's my basic little talk on the convention. I'm all for it. I don't believe in fear. I think most of us have a strong mind of power, not weak and timid. That's why we live out in the valley. That's why we live in Alaska. So we ought to use it and not live by fear.
All right, one of our people that are watching on right now, he has a question to follow up on what you just said.
Okay.
And he says the legislators already currently don't follow the Constitution now. Despite the oath they took, they support and defend it under Article 12, Section 5, how can we respect them to follow it, or if it is changed supposedly for the better? I mean, if they're already not following it now and we change it, what makes us believe that they're going to follow it in the future? And as somebody that's not in legislature right now and never has been in their lifetime, if you get there, what makes you think those other 59 people there are going to follow the Constitution if it gets changed when they already don't do it now?
Well, it's a good question. I think the dysfunction that we see, like this particular election, if you look at it, we have the ability to put in change quite a bit of that dysfunction. If it went the way that some people think, there's an opportunity to put in quite a few newbies, and that I think is better. You know, I don't believe in the theory of the devil we know is better than what we don't know, because right now we're not getting anything done. So we have the ability to change that and give those people a chance. That's what else can you do?
Gotcha.
You get the Constitutional Convention and the people are doing it and you have it. I'm merely saying that if you put the right team together to go down there, the right people get voted, then we don't have as much dysfunction and we have a lot more working together within the team of the Republican side.
So is there any specific issues about the Constitutional Convention that you would like to see addressed?
Yeah, I named a couple of them there. Maybe not in this order, but all important.
Give me your top three.
Top three?
Top three.
Enshrining the PFD so they can't take it again. A full PFD for the way that it was originally intended, statutory. And make sure that they can't touch it again. At the very least, moving the legislative session to the road system and changing the way that our judges are appointed in this state. And I believe there's some other changes, subtle changes that probably could help with the judicial branch. But those would be the main three.
Okay. I understand you're a very conservative candidate, especially getting to sit and talk with you behind the scenes there. I know more than that's what we're trying to help educate our audience here today for who you are and where you stand. So we've got abortion as the hot topic that's out there. This is what the Democrat candidates are all running for, like Les Guerra and Walker. We're going to protect the rights of abortion that are out there. In Alaska, our own Alaskan Constitution says that you have the right to have an abortion all the way up to term. And for any reason at all, you may have found out that your baby's going to have blue eyes and decided that's the reason why you wanted to do it. Where do you stand on the abortion issue? And now that the Dobbs has been overruled or passed thanks to the Supreme Court getting rid of Roe versus Wade?
I'm against the abortion. That's part of what I was talking about with the way our judges get appointed and some other subtle things with the judicial system. I'm against it. I think three reasons: rape, incest, and the life of the mother. And other than that, it's a life. If a single cell out in space is proof of life, that sounds an awful lot like conception here in the womb on Earth. And the argument that I've heard against that is, well, we're multicellular. Exactly my point. If we're multicellular, all the more reason that that would be proof of life. But I guess they're smarter than me. But I believe in the sanctity of life, and that's where I stand.
Gotcha. Good answers. I don't mind any single one of those, and I'm just going to leave it at that for the discussion. We've got what I like to classify as lawmakers, and we have lawbreakers that are down in Juneau, the ones that will 100% follow the law, and then we have other ones that are more than willing to break the law. And currently we've got laws on the books like senior longevity. I always bring this one up that my grandma back in the day, she had to leave Alaska because they defunded the longevity bonus that went to our seniors. The law is still on the books. It's been there for the last 20 plus years. And our Alaska legislators choose to ignore it every single year when they pass the budget, as if the law does not no longer applies. Taking it one step further, we've got our statutory PFD law that we have that says that Alaskans are supposed to have first call, and this is the statutory formula that is used to calculate how much each Alaskan is to receive each year. And then they passed this conflicting law, SB 26, the POMV, that completely, they say that the statutory PFD law no longer applies. The POMV law is all that matters. And when they get done spending what they think is the right size for government, whatever is left over goes to Alaskans. Now, if you get elected, are you going to be a lawmaker or a lawbreaker? And by that statement, I mean as in the budget is in front of you, the final budget, you're now time for you to vote on it. Will you vote yes for any budget that does not provide a full statutory PFD or follows the laws that are on the books, no matter what they may be?
I'm a lawmaker. I believe in the full PFD. I believe that our seniors need that. No, I just flew out of my brain. But I'm also a negotiator. I think, like this last session, we had the chance to have a full statutory PFD, and we had a budget that was that came to the House that was bipartisan. It was agreed by both sides, and we had two legislators in the House that chose to vote no. One mentioned abortion, and one mentioned that the budget wasn't conservative enough, I believe. Abortion isn't going to change. There's no way. Like, if you live in Alaska, you know that if we take the money for abortion out of a budget, the judges are just going to put it right back in. So that can't be a legitimate reason to say no, especially on the other side when you have a full statutory PFD ready to go. And if your idea was that this particular budget wasn't conservative enough, by you voting no, the consequences of that is allowing them to take it all apart and come back. And if you thought that it was going to be more conservative, that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So basically, what are you willing to die on? If you say you're for the PFD, you voting no for what we had because of abortion or too liberal or too big of a budget, either way you look at it, your no vote caused a much bigger budget, so they failed on that. We got half of the PFD, so it's hard for you to say that you're for a PFD, and we still have abortion.
And half the stimulus check because
exactly.
they to play more political games, they've in the House voted no for the CBR.
So you've got that's what I mean about, like, I am a lawmaker, but there is some negotiations that going on that go on to this, and that right there, if If I was in office, it would have been a yes vote. And I believe that I'm responsible to my constituents for one vote and one vote only, and that's my vote. So it doesn't matter how he voted, she voted, they voted, or they might vote. I'm responsible for mine. And when it came down to it, when it was time to toe the line, you voted no. So you can say afterwards that we didn't have the votes and it wasn't going to be this. You don't know. There's no way you know. What we do know is that you voted against every Alaskan getting a full statutory PFD at a time when we have the administration and the White House telling us that two consecutive downturn quarters in GDP is no longer the term of a, the
No longer a
no longer a
recession.
recession. They're
Yes.
changing the term, but we know what we're facing. We know inflation. We know the cost of living in Alaska, and you just told everybody that they're not worth it because of what? Your plan to go it alone. The two of you kind of fizzled out and blew up on everybody, and here we are.
So we're a resource state.
Yep.
When we signed the pact to join the United States back in 1959 and created our Alaska Constitution,
We had to do it twice. We had to prove the second time that we could be independent.
and pay for ourselves.
Yep.
Yes, and that was where the development of Prudhoe Bay
Yep.
came into effect at that point, and
Correct.
we proved that we could produce our own oil and economically pay for our own budgets.
Yes.
We currently have the largest budget in history of Alaska, and that's without including the PFD inside of it. The largest budget in the state that has ever been passed this past year, a total of $18 billion.
Yeah.
And then if you take all the pass-through money of the local and straight through for federal that was added on, pass-through money that came into our state on top of that, total of $29 billion is being spent this year right now in Alaska. Our normal budgets, including federal pass-throughs that we would normally see, is somewhere around $13-14 billion total. Our biggest budget that we've ever had in Alaska prior to this one was about $20 billion. And that is back in the peak days of the oil boom, back when we had so much money flooding in the state. That's when they made the Constitutional Budget Reserve, and at one point had $29 billion sitting in that reserve fund. Under Walker, we watched it drop down to $2 billion. The Constitutional Budget Reserve, it has a trigger point for what they call the sweep or the reverse sweep that happens. All of these different accounts out there that have money in it, when the budget reserve drops below, I believe the number is 14 billion. That's what I originally was told. I have other people that are giving me conflicting information saying nope, it's only about 10 billion. No matter what the dollar amount is, if we had over $10 billion sitting inside of the Constitutional Budget Reserve, the sweep wouldn't happen. Within the sweep, the money that gets swept is like the power cost equalization, the loan program that goes for our higher education to the universities. Little things like that are all tucked in within these different accounts that they have to put back into that account to try to replenish the money so that they follow the law of why that Constitutional Budget Reserve was there in the first place. And then they have to have a 3/4 vote to reverse that back out. Long story short, we had a $4.5 billion surplus this last year, above and beyond what the original budget that the governor had proposed was. They spent every penny of it. And the remaining extra surplus they had left over, they put it in the state SBR, the state's bank reserve, basically the savings account for the reserve there, instead of putting it into the CBR, the constitutional budget. Where do you stand when it comes, you were just stating there about fiscally responsible conservatives don't vote for bloated budgets as being one of the excuses given by one of the legislators that said no in concurrence to a full statutory PFD. Does that happen to be the person you're running against right now?
I believe so. I believe so. I think David Eastman was the one. There were two people that spoke up against the budget. One of them mentioned abortion, whether there was money for abortion in the budget or not, and the other one, I believe, mentioned the budget being too big. My stance on that comes down to, like that question said, there's 59 other people down there. 20 of them are in the Senate. So as a member of the House, I'm one of 40. You would think that there would be the ability to talk together. And that's what I mean is working as a team. Standing up alone and trying to push something by yourself is proven to not be very profitable when you're one against 39 others. Having your voice heard with the group, if you're caucusing with them, pushing your idea, pushing your thoughts, talking with one another, that's what legislation was about, I thought. You're going to have to learn the art of negotiation, and you're not always going to get everything that you want. It's not going to be a 100% kind of thing, so there's going to be some give and take. But honestly, that budget, I believe, with the precedent-setting full statutory PFD also being bipartisan, that makes no sense to me why not to vote yes, especially when they came to the House, both bipartisan. They were agreed on by both Democrats and Republicans. To me, that probably took a lot of work, a lot of negotiations to get some of those senators to cross the line and work with the Republicans to roll the leadership there. And that tells me, in my mind, strategically thinking, that most of those Democrats that crossed probably were not going to do that unless that they had a few in the House that were going to vote with them. That's a lot of work to go against and just say, nope, because I believe that the budget is too big. And even if you believe that to your core, what was really going to change?
Yeah, I'm going to help out here and say that the main reason is your one voice, and if you're the only voice out of that entire room that stands up and says, I can't do this because it's not fiscally conservative enough, yet you know that there is enough people in the room that's going to pass this no matter what you do, or the choice between here's your statutory PFD if you don't vote yes now, but you do your no vote at that point and it gets completely stripped out.
Yep.
But all the bloated pork items that you were rallying your conservative fiscal responsibility for, is still left into the budget.
I believe
your one voice to those other 39 inside of the House means nothing.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so the Republicans, I can't believe they didn't have time to sit and talk and look at what they were going to do from a strategic point. Now, if you're the standalone guy, how do you... The actual result of what happened plays out to my point. You going against what we have is going to lead to a much bigger budget because they're going to wipe it down and you give them a chance to come back at it. So you end up with a bigger budget, a smaller PFD, and you still have abortion. There's working in the playground. You learned to work together. You learn to team sports. I want to be the quarterback. Well, you're not as good as the quarterback that's in there. Sometimes you got to learn to follow to be a leader. Some people claim to be a leader, but when you look behind them, who's following? If you have a small group of constituents or a large group of constituents. There's 16,000 plus in the district. Do you have a majority? Are you voting the way the majority wants you to? That's a difference. And you can let your team members, you let your fellow Republicans know, look, I have to vote no on this because this, here it is. But if you're not in the team, what are you doing? How is that effective representation for a district of 16 to 18,000 people?
Well, we got to bring in another subject here because you are running for a House seat.
Correct.
And this past year, couple of years, anyways, we had the Senate majority claim that they had no binding caucus within the Senate. Yet in the House, it was outright known that the binding caucus rule was in full effect, where you were an automatic yes vote for whatever the Speaker of the House and those in control of the majority caucus there told you were going to be a yes for, selling out your votes and of your constituents' voices and votes that they had for electing you to be in the office in the first place. Odds are, if we're really lucky, the majority this year will be in control of the actual Republican Party, not a Republican in namesake only, with the Democrats pulling all the strings behind the scenes, saying that the Republicans are in charge, but the majority that is controlling that caucus is the Radical Democrat Party.
Correct.
If you're going down to Juneau, where do you stand with the binding caucus?
I'm absolutely against that. That is absolutely, I can't understand how anybody thinks that's right. Well, that's a double entendre there, right?
Yes.
That's obviously from the left. I've come to realize that chaos and confusion are tools of the left. They love it. That's what they push. And they're not for free speech. If they were for free speech, then the binding caucus would not be such a thing. I would like to see it outlawed. I believe isn't it against the law in a few states? Don't quote me on that, but I believe
yes.
I believe it's like illegal. And I believe that's another area up here that I believe the binding caucus actually breaks law in Alaska. I believe it's against the law.
No.
It's not?
It's not.
Are you sure? Because
positive. The binding caucus is actually legal here in the state of Alaska.
I thought there was language that made it illegal to keep a legislator from voting for what he wants to vote for or voting against what he wants to vote against. And that's kind of what the binding caucus does. It may not come out and say exactly that, but I believe there's language in there that could be.
They did try, I believe Senator Shower and about two other legislators did try to push through a bill. Senator Shower was talking about it earlier today on the Michael Dukes show. And they made it through the majority of the committees inside of the Senate there, and then it got in front of the Rules Committee, and it went into that black hole.
Black hole or disappeared?
Yes, where the bills go to die and not be seen again. Because
well, that's sad, because I would help. I would be all for that. I think it needs to be done.
Another good example of is the election reforms that Senator Shower was working on. We saw in this last election process that for the special election for Congressman Don Young's seat, our Congress seat here in Alaska, and the reforms that was inside of that Shower had inside of his bill there gave a processed ability to rectify ballots that had problems with them that discounted their votes. We had nearly 10% of the ballots that had been cast that got rejected because there was no process to rectify incorrectly filled out ballots. You forgot to have a witness signature, or you forgot to put down some sort of verification number like your social security number or your driver's license number onto the ballot. And
that should be rectified.
There was no way to correct it. It is the highest Alaska has ever seen when it comes to an election for rejected ballots.
If that's not rectified, with this ranked choice voting now being the thing and all the confusion around it,
there's nothing in ranked choice that's there to rectify the voting process whatsoever.
That's what I'm saying. So how much worse is it going to be now?
Exactly.
I'm sorry, I spoke out of turn.
So ranked choice voting, you help bring in the monkey into the room. We've got the very first this primary on the 16th.
Yep.
For that congressional seat is ranked choice voting.
Correct.
How well do you understand how that works? And can you try to explain it? Or
I'll try. Best as I can from what I've read and what I've sat through and listened to. And this is crazy because there's people that are probably well respected that have differing ideas about what's going on with the ranked choice, which makes it kind of difficult. You know what I mean? But near as I can tell, on a ranked choice vote, you'll have a list of the candidates on one side, and then you'll have 1, 2, 3, and 4, or however many candidates there are. So who you want to vote for would be number 1. And then the next person that you believe would be number 2. So if you're, let's say, a Republican, you probably want to rank the red and then draw close to it. For me, District 27.
well, if I was to rank the red and say the state Senate seat
So
that's coming up, and Lisa Murkowski's gonna for sure be one of those
No,
red ones
but-
there. Should I rank her in with the vote, even though?
that's an exception to the rule. Who is saying she's red? Because there's very few Alaskans that will say she's red.
Well, the rumor is that's the whole reason why we got ranked choice voting is because Lisa Murkowski knew she wasn't going to win this next election. It was the only way she would win.
Some might say that about Walker as well.
Okay, I'm going to add in one here, and I will be doing a live stream tomorrow afternoon from the Lusac Library. They are doing a ranked choice ballot explanation of how this current election cycle is going to be happening. And so we've got ranked choice voting, and when you're talking about ranking the red, there's something that I believe that, and I will get 100% verification of this tomorrow, is you can rank the red. Let's say we've got the 3 or 4 candidates running in the upcoming election for the Senate seat.
Yep.
And Lisa Murkowski happens to be one of 3 Republicans that make it, and say Elise Galvin, if she was not running for I believe a House seat this year or a Senate seat, she would run for the U.S. Senate seat instead.
So,
and
in a perfect world, I would say I would vote for who I wanted as number 1, and then I would look at the candidates and I would say who's next best. In District 27, there's 3 of us running. I would put myself first, and I would put Stuart Graham second. If there were more than that, if I know the individuals, then I rank them according to what I know. Get rid of the colors. There's no red, there's no blue. What order do you put them in? Now you can have people who have said this, put me down as 1, 2, 3, and 4. But what happens is, after round 1, if your guy doesn't make it, your vote is done. The second place votes in a lot of these ranked choice elections, the second place could possibly put the person over the top. So, meaning that if Stu and I are running and Eastman gets X amount of votes, and people put me as Stu's number 2, and my people put Stuart as their number 2, the next round, that's going to charge either one of us up. Do you follow what I'm saying? Whoever doesn't make it to that second round is going to get all those second place votes. Like, I'll get all of Stuart's second place votes, and that'll push me up. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So now you have a higher percentage. Now you're looking for 50 plus 1. So let's say.
Well,
it goes.
Hold on a second. You just hit upon where I was going a little bit earlier there.
Okay.
50 plus 1.
Yep.
So let's pretend we're going to make these math really simple for everybody.
Okay.
We got 100 voters.
Yep.
These 100 voters vote and they rank the top 4. And in my case, there's only 2 out of the 4 that I want to rank, even though there's 3 reds running and 1 blue. And the reds, of course, are the Republicans. The blue is the Democrat. I only like 2 of the candidates that are running there in the red, and they're the only 2 that I want to rank. I'll rank number 1 and number 2 for I like red, dark red more than I like light red, and I do not like that purplish red one there. That's why I'm not going to rank them at all. And the one that's blue isn't even in the qualification for my pitcher.
Understood.
So my rank choice, and I'm doing it, and unfortunately my first pick gets thrown out, but my second pick is in the running because the third pick, someone else did similar thing, but their second pick was somebody that was that purplish red one there that I chose not to choose for, and they chose them. No, all of a sudden they find themselves with a voter candidate because when it came to that person, they got completely kicked out in the second round, so that they're next having to go to the next vote that was in line. But they didn't rank anybody else. Their picks are completely been wiped off of the map.
Yep.
The vote, the way that it is written for ranked choice, you have to have 50% plus 1. If you had
going through the rounds.
Well, if I go through the rounds and my first 2 picks didn't make it and I didn't choose
Then
anybody else,
your vote's gone.
but they still have to have 50% of the original vote.
That's what we asked about when I said, how are they going to clean this up if they didn't put in that bill that you were talking about, shower, cleaning up the votes, right? This is one of the issues. So here's an easier way that I've kind of explained it. So, and if you'll allow me. So let's say Eastman gets 35% of the vote. And because I'm me, let's say I get, well, let's say, we could even say that Eastman gets 40% of the vote and I get 35% and Stewart got, what would that be, 25%. So then we look at it and we go, okay, so I move on because I got more, but I get all of Stuart Graham's second place votes.
Well, let's pretend
What I'm saying is,
wait a minute,
but that could push me over the 51%.
But let's pretend for a moment that all those people that were for Stuart Graham didn't pick anybody else.
Then
so now you're sitting
now where I'm sitting there with 35%.
Yep.
Against David Eastman with whatever percent. We go on to the next vote, and do we do like we did and have a runoff vote again?
That's the big question that I have out there right now, is because if there's not enough, if it doesn't hit 51%, it has to go to a runoff of the 2 top vote getters.
There you go.
Because ranked choice failed.
Yep.
It didn't produce the 51% result, and it's going to cost us more money to hold another special election.
Well, like I said, chaos and confusion play out for the left. And I'm not like I'm a pretty open, honest guy. Like I'm not gonna sit here and say that.
So technically, we can have Lisa Murkowski running, and because of Kelly Tshibaka and her are going to split the vote that is out there.
And then it would become...
And because the other 2 Democrats that made it into the running of that particular race didn't garner enough of the vote, and they refused to rank either Kelly or Lisa. And so their votes no longer are being counted anymore because their candidates were washed out. We end up with 41% to 45% between Kelly and Lisa. They're now going to have to go into a special election for a runoff because all those Democrats that didn't rank them are going to end up having to re-vote again.
It's a good thing that we're flush with money because of the oil, huh?
It is. It is.
So you could how this plays out could lead to a runoff election in almost every single race.
And in
Correct?
all honesty, yes. I look at it,
And I think
any
there's
race
some
that
that-
has more than 2 people, it's going to go to a runoff.
Well, there's quite a few of them where you just look at it and you go, holy cow! There's quite a few of them that could actually end up this way that we're talking about, and that's why the education or the looking into it and trying to tell people to like rank the red, whatever, but go beyond just voting for this is the only guy I'm voting for. This is the only one. Well,
Yes.
so
So
your
in a
guy,
lot of ways, the political strategy should be is if you have candidates that you would like to see there, but the chances of the wrong one making it to the final 51%, the 50 plus one, could end up being the winner if you were to rank all of the, let's say, just strictly rank the red.
well, yeah,
Wouldn't it be a better political advantage to look at it as, well, if my candidate doesn't make it, the
Then
second
who do I
choice of
want?
mine doesn't make it, but the third choice would, because that would be the third one that I would rank, but that was only because I had no other choice at
No
that
other
point.
choice.
I would preferably say that I'm not going to rank that person, so it does force it to go into a runoff.
Okay.
That would be the
That's-
political game that should be played on for ranked choice voting.
That's a viable way to look at it. The two guys that I'm running against, the incumbent David Eastman, good man. I've sat and talked with him. He's a good dude. I like him. I don't necessarily like what's gone on, and whether it's his fault or their fault or somebody's fault, it's just not good. It's not what I believe effective representation should be. Stuart Graham, he's a politician right now. He's in I think it's the city council of Wasilla. He's a good guy, and I've told people that I've talked to, rank me 1 and rank Stuart Graham 2. That's and I would believe Stuart Graham is probably saying that as well. There's changes that need to be made. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, I believe that David Eastman probably is. If he doesn't win, I'm going to be thankful, because I can't think of anybody that I would rather have represent the Valley as a delegate for the Constitutional Convention. I think that he knows the Constitution better than most. I think that some of the things that are causing problems with working with others down there in Juneau probably play much better for the Constitutional Convention, in my opinion.
Okay, let's switch subjects here. I think we have beaten the ranked choice voting to death, and
Probably so.
Again, the primary that you are in currently right now.
Pick one name and vote it.
Pick one name and vote
That's
it.
the primary.
And so hopefully we get enough people that pick one name, yours and one other person out there, or maybe 3 other people. I don't think there's any Democrats that are running in your race.
There's not.
It's just all Republicans that are currently there.
We've all filed or claimed to be Republicans, conservatives.
Gotcha. So pick one name is where you are at right now,
Yep.
and since you are in the room, pick Brenden
That's correct.
Carpenter. So that way that
It's Brenden, not Brandon.
Brenden. Sorry, I try really.
go,
I've been
Brenden.
trying really hard not to say the wrong one, because I don't want people to confuse that. Let's go Brandon out there
Let's
and
go, Brenden.
flip you that wrong middle finger because they're getting the wrong slogan out there. We want them to cheer you on, not flip you off.
That's correct.
And but we've got the legislatures in the first 30 days that they are in office. They've got all of these special committees that they have, and they have all these different commissioners for, say, healthcare and Department of Education and DOT and everything else, and they come and explain what the last year's budgets looked like and what they are expecting in the current year for their budgets. And this all comes out in the very first 30 days. And the legislators there in Juneau know exactly what is being asked for. but they stretch out the budget process to the end of 90 days. And then at the end of 90 days, depending on where the political football sits for the PFD, you get stretched out to 120 days. And we don't get to see the budget until the last week of session before they vote on it. The sessions are supposed to be over with.
Yep.
Constitutionally, we're supposed to have our sessions done within 90 days.
Correct.
If you're down there in Juneau, do you have any plans to help expedite that budget process so that we're not spending the last week of the session debating over a budget that was completed 30 days after you guys walked into office?
That's another area where working together, negotiating, I believe, comes into play. Being new, it'll be interesting to see where you can fit in to help expedite it. But I'm new to this. I'm not a politician. This is totally not going to be my career, I don't think. I would like to see it expedited. I would like to see it done as quickly as possible. I would like to sit here and say that we have no more special sessions. I think that would be a good thing. But as we've seen in the past, it would be ridiculous for anybody to sit here and say that. But yeah, I would like to think that we could expedite that.
Now, there's bills that have been pushed down there in Juneau, and every single year it gets reintroduced. And I know there's one companion in the House and there's a companion in the Senate to tell legislators to fund the vote that Alaskans have done and has passed twice to move legislation to the road system.
I'm big on that. That's a vote. That's a yes.
Are you so you'll sign on to any bill immediately once you get to Juneau that says move them?
Move them. Yep.
And
at a minimum, the legislative session should be on the road system. It makes no sense not to.
Now, there's a lot of things that I've learned over the years of watching them down in Juneau, and one of the things that they do is they have rules that they make that first week that they're in office. When they form the majority, they say, this is the rules of the decorum that is going to happen down there in Juneau. And you are not supposed to speak ill of your fellow legislators, even when they do the most despicable, evil, vile, however you want to classify their point of view. And but it always seems to be whoever holds the gavel
gets to determine
what is vile and what isn't.
Yeah.
Where do you stand at when it comes to the rules, and do you think you're going to have much of a say on what happens there? Or, I mean, you're walking in as a greenhorn here, and I know I'm throwing you under the bus asking you a question you probably have no clue for an answer.
I do have an answer for you.
Okay.
As a freshman, you probably don't have much to say, so that's one of the areas where you're just going to have to go with the flow kind of thing. However, I do not think it's attacking someone to call out the violation. You know, like, I can hate the action, the crime, the sin, whatever you want to call it, without defaming, discrediting the person. You know, there's a lot of ways you can get across what you mean without necessarily, say legislator A was drunk and disorderly on the streets and who knows what, exposed himself, right? That's a despicable behavior, and we can talk all about the crime and the punishment without saying, Legislator A, you're a real turd and you did this. You know, you can actually say, Legislator A, you've brought a lot of shame on the position that we hold. You've not really performed at a level that I believe your constituents would want. The crime is vile, it's disgusting, especially in a state that leads the nation by leaps and bounds. Crimes against women and children. So we should be setting a better example.
That's kind of a good segue of when you bring in women and children there. Pre-pandemic, we had about 18-20% of Alaskans that were living on welfare of one form or another.
That's gone on.
And yes, we're at nearly 33% of Alaska's population is living on one form of welfare or another. Income limits were increased so that you could actually make more money and still qualify to be on welfare. Rural communities, especially the ones that are job impoverished,
Yep.
and in other words, there are no jobs there, period, to be able to have,
Yep.
are instant qualifications for the welfare system of one form or another. And if you have children, it opens up the world to a whole oyster of money that it makes it to where you never ever want to go back to work again, because you make more money to sit at home than you would going to an actual job.
Yep. So I have an answer to that people may not think of, and it'll take some time. But to me, one of the issues with the poverty and the issues with DV and all that, the Port Mac project, one super tanker to the state of Alaska can change the economic future for every individual. You got one super tanker loaded with lumber and cement, you've just changed the housing market. You've just lowered the price for a home. You follow what I mean?
I do.
And I believe that is I believe that's huge. I think that, you know, you've got like one of the number one things in marriages that causes strife and breakup is finance. So here in this state, if we lowered, let's say you lowered the housing by 15%, like now you have a married couple that can look together, we did this. We together bought a home, and the pride of ownership. I mean, that's something that's been talked about. That's kind of a proven thing. The Port Mac project, that needs to be pushed through for more reasons than what you can touch, you know?
We're another 64 earthquake away from
serious food like, how many bridges between the valley and Anchorage? You know, you start there with Ship Creek and you end with the Knik or the Matanuska Bridge. But there's several in between, you know, Peters Creek, Eagle River. One of those goes out and the valley is screwed. And that leads me to another thing, like the valley has...
Well, we saw what happened when the Eagle River Bridge
was being built,
was being fixed, or when the damage actually happened through that area, they had to completely bypass through the old road.
Yep.
Going into the heart of Eagle River just to be able to get through there for a while.
There's some issues that you know, and that plays into another thing that, you know, I get all these emails, and if you're a member of one of these things that sends out all the emails for surveys and stuff, I'm sorry that I haven't gotten it out to you. I've tried. The safety and security of food. You know, the Port Mac, from there, everything north, done. How could you get any better? You know, there's always issues, but I'm a believer in as many deep water ports as we can get. You know.
Yeah, they supplied money to Nome in this last budget. They gave money to Seward in this last budget,
we ain't getting them.
And they gave zero to
Port Mac. And why is that? Because you have, this is a ridiculous notion that I cannot wrap my head around, the thought that says, look at the Anchorage port. That's beautiful. That's all we need. That's as good as we can get. Like, are you kidding me?
We spend millions a year to dredge every single day, have to dredge out there.
It will never get any bigger. It won't get any better, and it will never get any bigger. And what boggles my mind is 50 years ago, you and I were alive. 50 years ago, with 1960 technology, we Alaskans, thumbed our nose at the world telling us we were stupid, we were foolish, there's no way we could do it, and we built the pipeline. Yeah. In 1960, you know, with that technology in the early 70s, we built across 3 major mountain ranges. Huge. with 1960 technology, and today they're telling us, building a port. I don't know. Like, really? Are you kidding me? That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it kind of brings me into a good segue into the next one.
Another one.
It is, because
I hope I'm doing okay.
you got the Port McKenzie, and a lot of it, the slowdown has to do with our Alaska legislators defunding any money that would go towards that project. And it is the Anchorage and Juneau legislation and Fairbanks that put a kibosh on it year after year after year, because they want to make sure that money goes to their direction and not to, and it's a way for them to punish the most conservative area in the state, the Mat-Su Valley.
Yeah, but it hurts the whole state. It doesn't just hurt us, because we are the fastest growing area in the state for like the last, 100 years? For the last 30 to 40 years, we've been the fastest growing area in the state, and they're holding that back. How does that prosper the state as a whole? It's ridiculous.
It doesn't.
Legislating out of spite, which leads us back to certain.
It's all power and control for their vote when it comes to that.
Yeah. So that's ridiculous. You can't. That just makes no sense. I love this state. I've had plenty of opportunity to leave, as many others have. I grew up here. I'm a Valley guy through and through. I know and understand the benefit of Valley trash. And I how do we make this state grow when we're holding back certain areas just out of spite? That doesn't make sense.
Exactly. Well, then that kind of brings us into the next part of this question is got the federal government. 1959, we became the 49th state of the United States of America. In our Constitution, it says that we are to utilize all of our resources to pay for ourselves, our government, for the benefit of all Alaskans.
Correct.
Since then, we got the oil pipeline built, and then environmentalists stepped into play. The federal government stepped into play. They came and squashed everything that had to do with any further development of any resources within the state of Alaska. We have laws, and earlier today I asked you, are you a lawmaker or a lawbreaker? And here's where I'm going to put you on the line here for, let's put your money where your mouth is. Okay.
I believe I have an answer.
We here in Alaska, already we sell marijuana, and it is 100% against federal law. Mayor Barkowitz, in his term in office, silently declared that Anchorage is a sanctuary city for illegal aliens.
That's where I'm going.
And the United States as a whole has sanctuary cities and states that completely ignore federal law when it comes to illegal immigration status and marijuana.
Taking my thunder.
We are a resource state. We are the number one, not only in the United States, but the entire world, for environmentally sound development practices that are admired by everyone, and they model what they do off of us.
Correct. So
why are we listening? I'll give you your chance. Give me a second.
You said it.
Why are we listening to the federal government?
I have no idea.
Why are we allowing these environmentalist lawsuits to continue to be pursued within our state?
No idea.
Why are we not figuratively flipping them the bird like we do with our marijuana laws, like they do with the sanctuary illegal immigration statuses throughout the United States, and start developing up our freaking resources?
So I have said, so now I'll be on record, but I've made a point of this. I don't think that we need to flip them the bird or anything like it. I think that we just show them the documentation to become a state. And they are not allowing us to fulfill our obligation of that documentation to become a state. I believe that I don't think it would take much to get in line with, so you'd have Alaska getting in hold of Texas, getting a hold of South Dakota, maybe Florida, and say, we are patriotic states, patriot states of the United States of America, and we are going to build the resources as we see fit, as what's needed to be done. And I think the precedent, because the left likes to use that word, the precedent has been set that you have states and cities that are allowed to consider themselves sanctuary cities, which endangers all 50 states, thumbing their nose at federal laws with immigration and helping law enforcement. So the band of states that I just mentioned, maybe more, maybe not any of them, but we would be protecting the United States and getting the resources flowing like they should be. Beneath our feet here in Alaska, there's everything we need to be a world leader in the manufacturing of solar panels.
Yes. Batteries.
That blows my mind. And so here's the thing that Alaskans know. So I'm probably preaching to the choir. Maybe this reaches outside. When they tell us the gas prices are so high, get an EV. Where do you charge your EV? And where does it get the power from? Where does electricity come from? Is it a coal plant? And the battery.
Bring California into the picture slightly, just for this discussion. We watch them every summer go through rolling blackouts because they don't have big enough powerful infrastructure for electricity.
Because they use wind.
Even their non-renewable resources, their natural gas energy and the few coal plants that they do have left there can't provide enough electricity to keep them from having, because there's too much power consumption. How do they plan on ever keeping the batteries charged when they can't even keep the heat?
But that's part of the problem, though, is because every time we talk about batteries, America is like, what, 5% into the batteries? China is over 25%. I think, aren't they like 35% of the... So whenever you talk about EVs and the batteries that we need, you're talking about purchasing them from China, basically. And China is...
And third world countries that are using children to mine in these toxic lithium pools.
Yep.
Pulling the materials out that are getting paid slave labor wages of, if they're lucky, 5 cents a day.
It's ridiculous. So, but right here in the greatest state and the greatest nation on earth, we have the ability to, I don't know, at least
be on the forefront of the development of the resources needed to put all this together.
Yes. You said it for me.
Simplify it all, wrap it into a nice little nutshell there.
We have the ability to be on the very point, and it behooves us to do that, because if this administration and the country has its way, and oil is no more. We've gone through, you'll probably remember this, Bert, $10 a barrel oil.
Yes.
That's
back in the 80s.
Yeah, that's not a fun time to live. That's not a fun place to be up here.
Yeah, that was when the market crashed so bad that
everybody left. We saw literally saw people leaving, saying goodbye to your friends, some of which you never see again. It behooves us to be at that very tip of the spear, leading the charge for that next renewable. Now, maybe we don't use it or whatever, but obviously there's a market for it.
Well, I'll give Governor Walker, the ex-Governor Walker, credit of at least bringing to highlight that we've got enough LNG here in Alaska.
For like a million years.
Pretty much. Well, they know just in known reserves that's out there that we could supply the entire world for the next 100 years. And still, that's a postcard stamp size of the Anwar area that this LNG has been located in.
So why are we using it?
Exactly. Why are we not out there developing it if this is what's brought down? I mean, we are the lowest carbon emissions now because of swapping over to LNG than anywhere else in the world when it comes to the Green New Deal.
So, and because of, what is it, the Johnson's Act?
The Jones Act.
Yeah, so like right there, like we should come up with a better trading partner than Washington State anyway. But so not going south, if we had
foreign vessels can't go between ports.
but we can, they could leave us, or we could have and go over the top, which takes off 20 days. It's 20 days shorter to go over the top of Alaska if we had icebreakers to go over, and that opens up the Atlantic instead of going all the way down to the canal.
The Panama Canal, yeah.
Yeah, the Panama Canal, the Palaka. Yeah.
I mean, Russia, Russia, I'll give them credit. They did do a good job. I think they're up to like 20 icebreakers now. I may be over-exaggerating by double.
No, but they supposedly, there's some icebreakers on the way, but just looking like we are the Arctic, China has more of a presence in the Arctic than we do, and they claim to be a near Arctic country, like nation, I should say. But
near what part of the Arctic?
Yeah, but that's what they say. It's just like, hey, we can't build a modern port in the state of Alaska that we could be proud of, but yet China can just build islands in the middle of the ocean and make them a military base and say, hey, this is China territory, and we just changed the whole shipping lanes of international shipping. Like, and we can't build a port. Really? That we can't. We have to watch Russia use the Arctic to bypass the Panama Canal, and we sit here and go, yeah, okay, come on.
Well, I always got a chuckle right now is because we hear the big excuse, oh, Joe Biden, it's not his fault that we are seeing the record-breaking gas prices that we have for our fuel. I'm feeling it just in the energy costs when it comes to my light bill here in my house. Yep. It's costing me $40 more a month this summer than it did last year at the same exact time. I'm feeling it at the gas pump every time I go to the gas pump. I'm looking at the food costs, which are now 11% higher than they were a year ago. So everything I buy is costing me 11% more than it did 1 year ago. All these totaled up prices just for what I'm currently putting out there right now. I've had to figure out how to come up with dang near $8,000 more a year just to cover my living expenses, and that is tightening my belt. I'm no longer doing any sort of travel.
You're not going to the movies.
Exactly. Joe Biden has been preaching to the choir, so to speak, his choir of his little group think, and claiming that he's lowered the gas prices over the past 3 months. Look at how much we have lowered the gas prices. And 25, 30 cents roughly, yeah. Claiming that that's $3.99 a gallon through most of the country. God, we only wish it was that here in Alaska.
And we're the ones with the fuel.
And yes. Reality is the gas prices have lowered for one reason and one reason only. People like me who have tightened their belts and no longer traveling anywhere. So the demand has gone down, so the supply is starting to develop up a small surplus. Yep. And that surplus is what's redriving that prices back down again. It has nothing to do with anything that Joe Biden has done. I mean, even the oil reserves that he released from our strategic oil reserves went to foreign countries because we don't have the refineries to refine the oil to turn it into gasoline in the first place. So nothing he has done has lowered our gas prices, but it sure is making other countries rich. Obviously. And Russia is one of them.
Yep.
Russia.
So is China.
Yep. Russia, they claim they destroyed them economically, all the sanctions they put into place. The ruble is now worth more than it's been in the last 15 years.
Yep.
They have made record-breaking profits off of their natural resources, oil and LNG. Oil is the best example. They've almost doubled since the war has started. what they have made selling their oil than what they had prior to the war even beginning. So Russia is getting rich. They are feasting hand over foot. Nothing that Joe Biden has done a thing to curb that war that's going on there. Yet we Alaskans, we Americans are paying the price.
Do you think that's an accident?
I think it was intentional.
Okay, then we're...
I mean, why else invade Ukraine or allow Ukraine to get invaded in the first place by giving Russia Nord Stream 2 while shutting down the project Keystone and the anything that had to do with Alaska's resources on the Gulf Coast and in Anwar?
So I think what's going on with... I don't know your question, but I
Not really a question, more of a... Let's get some facts out there and let's spitball.
So I believe that what's going on with Russia is kind of a look over here and don't notice that I'm selling our oil reserves to China. We walked away, you know, allowing China to just walk into a lot of places isn't the best thing in the world. I think... well,
look at all the farmland they're buying here in America. Yeah,
exactly. So
next to military bases, of all places, you know.
That's what I'm saying. And how many people are talking about that? But we're saying how evil and Putin is the devil and he's a monster and he's evil. Look what's going on. Look what he's doing. And so I run the risk here, but I agree that Putin is not like a good man, but we almost went to World War III because Russia was going to put nuclear arms on Cuba, and we're saying how evil Russia is when Ukraine, what is it, like the 1994 Belarus treaties? There's some treaties going on that I can't, so maybe I shouldn't say, but I believe there's treaties where they have buffer states, and Ukraine was a buffer state. And so you got NATO saying, we're going to make Ukraine a NATO. How is that any different than Russia putting nuclear arms and military bases on Cuba when you got NATO trying to put it right there on their border with Ukraine, saying that they're going to be... So I just think there's more at play than just saying, hey, this guy's evil and we got to go do this. We can spend billions and $40 billion.
Well, do you think instead of spending it on a good possibility that Joe Biden and the Democrat administration that's in full control in both the House, the Senate, and in the executive and judicial branches
is covering Hunter Biden's?
Exactly. that they allowed this war to happen to help stop the investigation into their corruption.
I think that there's a lot more going on than just willy-nilly labeling people a monster, they're evil, and this has to stop, and this has got to be, and that's got to be, and just jumping in the middle of it and saying, like, we're spending $40 billion in Ukraine protecting their border, but look at our border. I thought
that $40 billion could have finished our border wall and built it 10 feet higher.
How come in our country borders don't matter and we don't need them and you can't have them and it's racist and it's evil, it's immoral to have a wall. Borders are meant to be open, but over there it's okay, and our money has to pay for their border, not ours. That it's just questions like that, and I'm not saying that I'm for Russia by any stretch of the imagination. I think what's gone over there's some serious war crimes that have happened, and of course we need to take care of that. I don't want to see Ukraine slip into the hands of Russia. I don't want to see that.
I have really no sympathy for Ukraine myself, because if you look at their history, they're Nazi sympathizers. Well, they support the Nazi movement in Ukraine. And we're not talking a small majority of the population. It is the majority of the population that thinks that way.
So they're one of the most corrupt governments ever. So maybe they were cleaning up, maybe they weren't. I just think that what we're facing right now as a country, that $40 billion could have done really well to slow down China and the cartels at our southern border with the human trafficking, the sex trafficking, the drug trafficking, the
overdoses that we're seeing
everything that we're
record-breaking
seeing,
numbers from.
And the one thing that some people that nobody's talking about is how many people on terrorist watch lists have made it in. And then when they're questioned about it, they refuse to answer questions of, well...
And we have no idea where they are.
Well, because were they involved in the groups that you planed to somewhere Middle America? Were they on the buses that you sent to Middle America? And I think it's really, really telling that New York, was it New York that got really upset, or D.C., got really upset that Texas actually bussed a whole bunch of immigrants into D.C. and dropped them off.
And another announcement this morning that they've got the next round of buses coming in.
Yeah, and they're like, we can't afford this. This is really expensive. Hey, thank you for finally opening. And that's part of the dilemma. There's certain so-called journalists, reporters that are no longer allowed to be embedded with the military, who don't mind certain things, and it's okay, but then when it touches them personally, when it hits a family member, when it comes close to them, suddenly they hate it. And now they agree with us. But the moment...
Yeah, it's overwhelming our welfare system. It's overwhelming our food pantries. It's overwhelming our housing
education
capacity.
And our emergency rooms.
But it was not a problem as long as it was a red state.
Yeah, Texas, Florida, Arizona, any border state, if you guys handle it. But hey, we're not calling them up here. We're just saying we're a sanctuary state. Like that's why I believe that in Alaska we have the ability to actually say you're basically breaking our agreement and being a state. You're not allowing us to be independent. You're not allowing us to do the very thing you made us prove. It's almost like we gave them a map of how we were going to do it, and they took it and said, okay, so no, we're going to own this land, and we're not going to let you dig here. You can't do it there, and you can only do it during this time. You can't do it then. I'm like, no, sorry, we became a state for a reason, and we're going to be independent. So that's a whole big conversation. I don't know what happened there, but...
Oh no! And it all started because I said that should we flip the bird to the federal government and start developing up our resources?
I agree with that.
No ifs, ands, or buts. And
it's not just like digging for oil or any of that. There's a lot of resources that we have up here. I mean,
the Ambler mine, the Pebble mine. I mean, I don't know if you heard, but the Pebble mine just received another injection of money to push that project forward again.
Who is basically the ones that are against Pebble Mine?
Oh, it's 100% the radical left. Oh, Bristol Bay, we're hearing more outcry from those in the lower 48 than we're hearing from actual Alaskans.
Okay, so Pebble Mine should be allowed. And I have friends that are fishermen.
Have you read the report that came out, the EIS report?
I have not.
I've taken the time, and it's a long document to go through. It's very dry. It's very technical. It's very boring. It was something that would bring tears to your eyes, something that the advocates that are against Pebble Mine ever being developed, they probably never read further than the title on the very first page, and that's where they stopped at. I've gone through the report. And it said that and I brought this up in one of my interviews yesterday, that even in the worst biblical type disasters of the world, Moses had to build the ark again, and the waters had to be split and parted because of to make sure that everybody would be saved. Worst earthquake ever imaginable. It makes the 1964 earthquake look like a patty cake game being played between two little infants out there. Tornadoes that literally show up from nowhere, and it's just picking up the tailings of the pond and everything else and carrying it all the way out. Less than a 1% chance that it would ever reach the watershed of the Bristol Bay.
How far is it?
The Telling Pond is actually 10 miles from the closest watershed.
Yeah.
And
So-
the stream that it would be affecting, the one and only stream that it would be affecting, not even it's less than 1%. It's almost like the COVID deaths out there. You know, less than 1% of the population, or less than 1% chance that the at worst type biblical proportion disaster would
It's not going to happen.
it ever happen.
So here's a question, and I guess if people ask about it, I'm not trying to answer a question with a question, but have you ever heard of the Kennecott mine?
Yes.
So, and they mined copper, right?
Yeah.
Long time ago, when nobody ever heard what environment even was, and all the tailing piles from that mine went where?
Oh, straight out there.
Straight out into the Copper River. There's a reason it's called the Copper River, and that's a pretty good source of salmon.
It is.
And I've never heard of the salmon runs in the Copper River. Oh, they're dying, they're dying. So it leads you to believe what's going on without a pebble mine, what's going on in Western Alaska, right, with the salmon returns.
Because they're not even talking about processing the ore there at Pebble. They're just going to box it up, figuratively, box it up and ship it out to be processed elsewhere.
Along with all the minerals that we have, name another state that has as much fresh water as we do. And like the little bit of travel that I've done when I was in the military, and out of the military, our water up here moves at a pretty good clip.
Yes.
It's pretty fast. It's coming down some serious elevation. How are we not using more hydropower? Right now, you and I are not like green, Billy, give me your carbon footprint proof of, right? So how...
I've done enough environmental education to know that it is a political power game. It has nothing to do with our environment. If they truly want to fix what they call the environmental disasters that are going to get people killed, start building those retaining walls along our coastlines.
Yeah.
Start moving the infrastructure that we have in known floodplains.
But here's the thing: is that if the role was reversed, and let's say the Republicans, we hated all of this resource development and we didn't like it, we would be doing that. There would be groups of us coming together, working together, and building retaining walls in certain areas. Just doing it. Not waiting for the red tape of the government, not demanding that every single American believe with us and live like us and go through the rolling brownouts like California and just go back to... Well, I guess they want us to go back to the whale oil.
Well, if what they say is true, why does Obama have his beachfront property? I mean,
I'm just saying, like, if the role was reversed, Republicans would be doing it. We believe in something, we do it, and we're not demanding that everybody else do it. You and I don't like to eat meat. We're not demanding that nobody else can. We just don't eat it. The opposite, you see what happens. It becomes a religion.
If you're a vegetarian, then you eat. You're a vegetarian, but I'm not going to force you to be a vegetarian because you like meat.
So that's part of what. And and here in Alaska we see it come full circle, and in California, like if you can't put solar panels in the Mojave Desert, where is the green people going to allow you to do it? And Alaska.
Well, we got to cut down this entire redwood forest, and we're going to put it in the center of that.
We get 20%. I believe it is 20%.
I mean, that's what they're doing here in Alaska. They're cutting down forested areas to put in solar plants to run.
Well,
we got one just outside of Willow there.
Yeah.
That the solar plant, and they're talking about doubling its size here in the next couple of years.
So I don't know.
That doesn't work 6 months out of the year because it's covered under snow.
My feeling is that hydropower is the way to go. We get 20% of our energy from, I think roughly 20% ish of our energy from hydro, and I don't understand why we haven't expanded on that with the amount of water we have up here. You know,
well, I'm going to add one into that. We've had the recent droughts that have happened. We've had to shut down the hydroelectric dams in the couple of places that we have had because there's not enough water to push the turbines to get them spinning to be able to, and they had to go to generator power supplied by diesel to keep their energy running. And these are smaller communities. These are not big communities that this affected. It really, really did hurt them bad. Our glaciers are melting. There's no denying that.
Totally agree. I'm not.
The water supply to run these hydro dams is not there. We're hearing it at the different locations down in the lower 48. You're watching these.
Oh, we're watching that deplete. You can see the lines on
right, and you can't. The water is just no longer there for that particular type of item to do. But we've got some of the biggest tidal action of anywhere else in the world.
That'd be hydro.
Why do we not have those being developed throughout our entire coastline areas?
They've mapped
supplying the energy.
They've mapped it as well through the ARM, and I would imagine that the reason they haven't is because probably what they want to do is in layman's terms, basically they take a windmill and stick it under the water.
Right.
You know, and
or one of those platforms that goes up and down like this with the.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if you're going to try and put those windmills throughout the Cook Inlet, you're going to adversely affect fish, belugas, and what else? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can just foresee the problem that everybody's going to talk about. But there's. It seems that there would be.
Well, if we could do windmills on the land already that are decimating our eagle population and our bird population out there.
What does a few salmon matter? I disagree with that. I
mean, the bycatch alone out there from the trawlers,
from the trawlers,
destroying of the.
That's something that I don't understand. Why we still have bottom trawling in the waters of Alaska? I just don't. I think we should be patrolling the edge of Alaskan waters, butting up to international waters. I think that we ought to have the highest fines and confiscation.
Do you think they should expand the distance out?
Yeah,
right now it's only 3 miles.
It should be way farther than that.
How
do we do that? We put a little island out there like China did and say new line.
New line? Yeah, yes.
So
yeah, it's 3 miles for, and I had this broken down for me here yesterday.
That's crazy. I thought it was farther than that.
Yeah, they had a big fisheries meeting there in the Kenai yesterday, and I went driving by it as I was heading to my next call to go for work. And that parking lot was packed all the way out and along the road.
I believe it.
And this is on K Beach Road there. Yep. And that entire road, there was just vehicle after vehicle after vehicle after vehicle that was parked out there. And international water limit is 200 miles past our 3-mile Alaskan sovereignty limit. It's 200 miles. That's considered international water that supposedly folks like China are not supposed to be in the middle of.
And they are.
And they are. They're fishing right up on the edge of that.
That's what I'm saying. That it needs to be changed. Like we should be creating waves by impounding. Like, so you're an Alaskan and you mess up fishing, and rightfully so. You're going to have your truck taken. You're going to have everything that you used to get there is going to be gone. I don't care if you're China, Russia, Korean, blah blah blah. You fished wrongly, so we're taking your boat, we're taking your catch, we're taking everything. It's gone. I don't care what company you are, and you know that there's no such thing as a company in China. If you're working with a company in China, you're dealing with the communist government, right?
Right.
So yeah, I think that we confiscate that, and people should be worried about doing something wrong when they're anywhere near Alaskan waters. I just believe that. I think, and bottom trawling should be gone. I disagree with it. Ask Japan what they think about it. I mean, there's a reason why they don't fish in their area, right?
They got no fish anymore.
Because of bottom trawling.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, look at most of the European countries out there. There's a reason why their rivers no longer have fish in it, because they polluted them so bad that pollution is, they're the 95% of the pollutions that we find in our ocean comes from these foreign countries.
You know what's interesting is that they scream about the Pebble Mine and keeping the waters out there in Bristol Bay in Western Alaska all pristine. And you can't do any of this. But how often do we hear anybody saying, wow, you barge how much fuel up and down these rivers? That's your road system out there. Are you telling that? Has anybody looked into that as being maybe some form of causation. I mean, what's causing the lack of the salmon returns in the Yukon? Why? Why cave, right?
Yeah.
You're using it as a taxi. That whole river system, you're using it as a taxi service. How much fuel? How much energy is being used going up and down that? You barge everything in and up and down it. Is that not causing it? You keep saying, "Oh, let's not let sports fishermen or subsistence fishing go on. We're going to have to stop it." There, is that really what's causing the effect? I don't know. If you're going to say that you can't dig a hole inland because it might affect the stream, how do you not raise a stink about what's going on right now with the stream? Bottom trawling, all the barging. You know what I mean?
I got one here for you to bring into the. It kind of brings up the subject when you're saying
I gotta go.
What the barging and all of that is doing. This is unrelated to that, but also related because you're constantly hearing it's humans that are causing the climate to change on a regular basis. It's all humans' fault. That Mother Nature has nothing to do with it.
How many solar flares have we had from the sun lately?
The record-breaking forest fires that have happened over 3 million acres in Alaska, we have put out more of a carbon footprint from those forest fires than we Alaskans have done combined over the last 10 years.
Yep.
Over the last 20 years.
Agreed.
Of the carbon footprint just from the forest fires alone. That's just in Alaska. Then you add in all the ones that are everywhere else. Well, in the Tongass,
yep,
they just recently had a volcano, super volcano. For them, it's a super volcano that had erupted, and it did something that is different than many volcanoes when it erupts. Most of them put out a kind of like an arsenic type material that's reflective, and it helps to lower the temperature, so because the sun can't make it through.
Yeah.
This volcano put water vapor up into the stratosphere. It puts so much water vapor up into the stratosphere.
This is here in Alaska in the Tongass.
The Tongass.
Tongass.
And it puts so much water up into the stratosphere that a normal volcano, within 2 to 3 years after an eruption, most of that falls back down to the earth again, and the sun's making its way back through. So it's no longer being reflected away. The cooling process ends, back to heating back up. But water vapor, on the other hand, causes things to heat up. They predict it is going to take, at its current rate of expulsion of what has already gone up into the stratosphere, 5 years minimum if we're lucky. They're predicting as much as 10 years before enough of that water that has been shot up in there will dissipate, so that the sun is no longer heating us up as quickly as it currently is.
Really?
And it's going to get worse. And this was NPR that put this out. This is as of this morning.
They have said on multiple occasions we're all going to die in 12 years. And I think the last time they said that, we're looking at, 3 to 5 years to go on that?
Yes. I mean,
it
was right at the beginning.
I'm not,
Trump's first year, I believe, is when AOC said that we had 12 years to go.
And why is it always 12? But this time it's 10. I'll give him that.
By Al Gore's standards, we should all be living up on Mount McKinley or Denali right now.
And California is gone.
And California's gone, yeah. And Arizona's beachfront property, just like everybody always says.
I'm not discounting a lot of this, but it's all man-made. So they don't take into account all the earthquakes and all the eruptions, right? All the forest fires. Look at what the forest fires in Australia. Man-made.
Just the carbon footprint that is happening in our Arctic slope up there in the tundra. The methane that is being put out, and the just the normal carbon that is being released into the air. So they have proven that it is twice the amount of our current forestation can handle. And that's Mother Nature releasing it, not us Americans, not us humans.
So with all of that, We don't even water. The oceans cover 3/4 of the earth, and we know more about Mars and outer space than we do what's going on under the water with the superheated vents that blow out poison, and they're thousands and thousands of degrees coming out of them. Right? There's different weird lakes inside the oceans. So like I've watched some of these National Geographic where there's a difference in salination.
Yes.
So you got different creatures, right? And it's right inside the ocean. And all of a sudden it's like a different lake. So it has more salt in it or it's less salt. You have
You got heavy water in one certain area versus another.
Yeah. And you
got those little aquatic fish that have their little antenna that lights up on the end, but they're living thousands and thousands of feet under the ocean.
And some of them are living in these superheated vents of thousands and thousands of degrees, and there's creatures living in that heat. So, and they're getting food. We know. If we don't know what's going on under the ocean, then we know a hair. And so for them to come out and say, this is factual, this is what's going to happen, this is how it's going to be. Dude, you're not even telling us the whole, you're going off of 1/4 of the picture.
So 97% of the scientists all agree that their theories are correct.
I just think it's odd. I have trouble just believing just to believe. Like even my Christian belief, it took me a bit. I didn't just go, okay, yeah, woo. But there's things that have happened in my life where it's reinforced that belief. So to say that, like, my point in that is that it actually could be worse than what they're saying if they're only showing us 1/4. If they only know about the land, that's 1/4 of what's going on Earth. They don't. How have all the super flares shooting out from the sun? How have they affected things? I thought that there was going to be a whole bunch of stuff here where we were going to have to go back to analog because basically all of our digital stuff was going to go kaputs because of these solar flares. I haven't seen much of that.
Y2K.
Well, there's just, and it's, let's label everybody. That's one of the problems that I have with a lot of things that we see going on right now. It's easy, the first thing that despots and dictators do is generally, it's not taking away the weapons. The first thing they do is they legitimize the demonization of a bad people. So you have to dehumanize a certain group. And they're generally going to be those that disagree with you and are vocal about it. Or it's going to be a people that you want to blame everything on, like we saw in World War II. So they're going to dehumanize that. And as they're dehumanizing it, they're going to start taking away weapons from maybe just them. Then that taking away from the weapons is going to grow. So you've got these people that you're not supposed to like, and they're labeled like deplorables. And it's not that...
The ultramagas.
Yeah, we don't have to... it's not enough that we won an election. We now have to worry about how to re-educate 72 million people in this nation. And that's the same group so they've labeled
and somehow make that re-education get past the 90% that's in control of it right now.
So I'm just saying, we're in the dehumanization, we're in the labeling of it, while they're trying to take weapons away and so I go to my doctor and he asks me, do you own any guns? What the hell does that have to do with you? I came here because I got a bad knee. Let's talk about that. There's serious things going on. Thank God we live in Alaska. There's a lot of reasons to love living up here. If the sun goes out and we're all dying from overheat, there's a lot of food up here that we can get, not from the stores. And that's a scary thing that we need to think about. Like Alaska in general has 3 to 5 days of food.
Yeah, we've got about a week's supply
Ish.
If our ports were completely shut down,
Ish.
we'd have about a week before we would be desperately saying, Alaska Airlines, we need you to empty out all your planes, no more flying passengers,
This isn't
cargo only, and that wouldn't even take care of 25% of our population.
This isn't a willy-nilly thought. You have Canada not really caring, wanting to use Alaska as leverage because he's mad. Trudeau is mad, gets mad at Biden. So we're going to make it harder for truckers to come through the border.
Yep, you don't have your vaccine shot, you can't. You no longer can transport.
And if anybody thinks that Washington is a really good friend to us, they're mistaken. They've blocked some of the oil rigs that have tried to come up here. They're always against most of the stuff that Alaska wants to get. But during the pandemic, they actually, I believe it was whispered, "Wow, we might have to close the port." What would we do? Well, we have the port in
Well, we'd be like California with the hundreds of thousands of ships
sitting out there for nothing,
doing nothing, and which are still sitting out there right now.
Yeah,
they have yet to catch the backlog up, but it's no longer in the news.
But what's unseen about that is right there, that whole cause of a leftist utopia of California, what that's caused. How much of what they have is no good now? Like if any of that is food, you're done.
Well, think about the recent announcements from like Target and Walmart. We are having these explosion sales. We're giving away our products because we now have surpluses sitting on hand, and nobody wants to buy them
because of inflation.
They can't afford it.
Can't afford it. So
they're more worried about paying for the gas to get to work and feeding the children at home than they are about buying that new TV or...
There's decisions that have been made recently by other states that I believe have or could have an adverse effect on Alaska. California, I forget which bill it was, but it passed basically saying that if you're not a union trucker, you can't drive. So that gets rid of all the independents, the people that I own my truck and I work for this company. Nope, you can't drive through California. Well, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
We already have a problem with the supply chain.
And now we're going to make it even more difficult.
You took at least 70,000 off. And of that, how many of the companies have to get rid of those guys? You can't drive anymore in the state of California, but here I am, and now I only have 5 or 6 that I can work. Like this is so. How much?
We were speaking of the supply chain.
Unintended consequences.
Earlier today, you brought up the Jones Act, and it became very evident when it came to shipping of supplies coming to Alaska, because they always had to do a port call in Canada before they could come here. They leave Washington, they would hit. Canada, they'd have to make the port call there, and then they would come to Alaska to do the final trek. And it was, thank God, the radical left in control of D.C. down there actually approved allowing the bypassing of the Jones Act, and they could go straight from Washington to Alaska.
That should have been made permanent, was it?
It was not.
Yeah,
it is not. It is still a temporary bypass to the actual law.
So evidently, I don't know enough about that. Probably so, but when Trump was in office, he wanted to get rid of that. He wanted to repeal that, and he was talked out of it by who? I believe he was talked out of it by Sullivan and Murkowski. Don't know why, but I believe that's true.
No, it was because it didn't happen within his first 2 years.
So it couldn't happen?
Exactly, because when the Democrats at the midterms got control of the House and the Senate, at that point, any of Trump's agenda is no different than what we're seeing with Biden's agenda right now. It was stonewalled all the way through. The only way Trump was getting anything done in the beginning was through executive order.
Yeah,
and
that an executive order.
He did get the tax reforms and all of that passed through, and that had to do mainly because they had the majority within the Senate.
And do you know the Jones Act?
Yes.
You ought to say it.
I don't know it specifically, but I do know, I understand it well
It
enough
makes
to
it tough
know
on
that
Alaska that we have. It's
any foreign vessel that it has to do a port call somewhere other than within the United States before it can transport to the next destination.
exactly. So my understanding was that basically it 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 makes it makes it easier or better profitable for Alaska to do business with foreign countries than it does going and doing business with our
Exactly. I mean,
fellow states.
Puerto Rico is a good example of what happened when the hurricanes came through and their entire country or their little island nation there was completely destroyed. And we had to do kind of like what we did now with the Jones Act. They finally had to give exceptions just to get relief supplies over to them.
Yeah, so when you see that, when it's in this emergency, how is it not like, wow, let's
This is
just
a
make
stupid law. Let's get rid of it.
Let's just get rid of it. You know, like, hey, sorry, here in Tech, like some town from 1892, you can't sit here on a Sunday and kiss your boyfriend. Or it's yeah, we're kind of getting rid of those. Let's kind of clean up the books maybe a little bit.
Kind of brings me back into NASA days when they were first starting out and they were going to launch the first landing on the moon and
we didn't
coming
really
back.
do that, right?
And the woman scientist, I can't think of her name, but she's we'll put it in the terms of the day. She was a colored woman, and she had the boss of NASA, the person in charge. He got on her saying, "Where have you been for the last 2 hours? Why have you not been in here working?" And she's the one that was doing all the math and was very skilled at it. And it's going, because the only colored bathroom that we have here at NASA is clear across the campus that's over 4 miles away, and when I need to go, I have to go all the way over there to go use the bathroom. And to watch a little bit later into
change that.
A little bit later, you see him with a baseball bat beating the hell out of the colored bathroom only sign and saying there is no longer no such thing here within NASA. And that's no different than what you're describing when it comes to the Jones Act. It's a outdated, archaic, barbaric laws that are still in place that don't benefit anybody but the oligarchy of those in control of power.
Yeah.
And they don't want to release it.
Dreaming of Port of Anchorage being the greatest port we can ever come up with.
Yes.
So we don't need anything else.
Not the Port of Anchorage, the Port of Alaska.
Since we're in the same body of water and we're in the Cook Inlet, isn't there a way we could use the wording and say that we're part of the Port of Alaska too?
Well, Mackenzie, isn't it done yet? Come on now. There's the real Port of Alaska. Don't even have to dredge
that's something that Kevin McCabe is huge on that. And I remember the first time that I came up with and was looking into the port, watching him at one of his, I don't know if it was a meet and greet, but I heard him talking about it, and I was like, yes, oh my gosh, how come more people aren't in with him on that? So that's something that, see? He's got one. He's got me. When I get elected, he's got me on there. Just grab a couple others and get it done.
Well, I'm going to hate to do this to you,
I gotta go.
Yeah, I don't think you realize that we've been at this now for exactly 2 hours.
For real, that's way longer.
So yeah, it compared to your 45 minutes that you had earlier, that seemed to just not be long enough to even get a sentence out.
This doesn't seem like 2 hours.
It doesn't. I've had, like I said, interviews that go as long as 4 hours, and then we lose track of time when we get to talking. And
I hope your fans.
We've kind of diverted a little bit from here, but all of it, no matter how I look at it, I see everything that we've discussed today directly affects Alaska, especially like when we got into the climate change debate going on there.
There's no doubt that our glaciers are, stuff is happening.
Right.
But demanding that we go back to, like, some of the mandates that they want to make for carbon, like, during the Civil War, we weren't at that level. Like, what are you talking about? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
Well, we got places in Alaska that are getting rich right now because of buying the carbon credits. California is buying all of our carbon credits to go plant trees.
Great.
To manage our own forests.
That's good.
That they're paying us to do that because they're buying off their carbon output.
We should be doing that everywhere. I hope your fans are happy with it. I tried to answer and be as open, as honest as possible. Hopefully I'll get better if there was a lot of mistakes. I don't know.
You're in a learning curve. That's one of the reasons why I'm not nailing you so much on what the...
I'm born and raised here, so I think I have a smattering of knowledge on most of the stuff. And what I don't bring to the table, I can be taught. What I do bring to the table, evidently not everybody has, and by their actions and behaviors, they don't want to be taught. That team building a team, working together, and that actually, like, I'm a conservative through and through. So, and maybe sometimes too much, but there you have to negotiate. That's what our government is about.
Well, can I help you out on that one real quick?
Okay.
Negotiation is great, but we need to do it the American way, not the Republican way.
Okay.
And I say it that way because the Republican way is here's the bare minimum that we're willing to accept. Let's start negotiating from there. Kind of like the 50-50 plan for the PFD, where the
go to the worst case scenario and start there.
And go there. And Democrats love to take advantage of that and say, oh, well, you're already telegraphed that you're willing to do the 50-50. Well, we want more.
Yeah.
We want a 75-25 instead.
Never negotiate from behind. Never negotiate as though you're already lost. Regardless of what your position is, you should when you go sit down at the table of negotiations, you should be at the faking it until you make it. At least faking that you're strong and you believe. Do you know what I mean? That I'm going to get some of this, but to just go in and start, like, I've sold cars before, so you never start at the bottom. If I want $1,500 for this car, I'll ask double. I'll ask $3,000.
Yes.
Well, I'll give you $2,000 for it. Okay, no problem. Here you go. But why would I say I want $1,500 for a car, and that's the bare minimum I can accept? The first offer you're going to get is $900 at least.
Exactly.
Probably much lower. So, and we see that. No offense to my friends that work at the school district or are state employees or public employees, but how many times have they gone to the table and you think that it was just a grocery list and there was no negotiation at all? It was just somebody saying, here, we know you want all of this and this was your wish list, here you go. You've got it. Done deal. Like, how and some of them have actually been amazed and couldn't believe it.
We saw that in this last year's budget.
No, and then
they've got their wildest, wettest dreams handed to them.
And then to come and say, no, you guys don't really need the PFD. How does that work? So, I understand what you're saying, and I agree. I do. So, I like to use the term negotiate because I'm not going to compromise who and what I am.
Final word here. I want to support your campaign.
Okay.
Where do I go to do that?
Okay, on Facebook. I don't have a website up. I have a Facebook page, Brenden Carpenter, for State Representative, House District 27.
And it's really spell your first name just so people don't get confused.
It's Brenden. Brendan. So it's pronounced Brenden.
D-E-N?
It's pronounced D-E-N, but it's spelled D-A-N.
Well, then I've got it up on my screen wrong all day long.
It happens. I've answered the far worst. But
and I think I can blame that on Michael Dukes, because I think that's whose show I stole it off of from this morning.
That's okay. That's okay. I would... So, my phone number is 907-671-3323. My email is bcarp, first four letters of my last name, bcarp4299 gmail.com. And I would love your support. I accept all donations, including prayers.
And if so, what was you gave your phone number there?
I did.
And you said it slow enough so in case they need a, if they're like me and have to go,
I need a sign. I have to go right down
10.
here. Okay, so phone number one more time is 907 671 3323. My name is Brenden Carpenter. I'm running for House District 27, and I would appreciate your vote.
Well, thank you so much for spending your afternoon with me here, and hopefully we got a lot of the questions I know up front, at least in the first hour or so. We covered an extremely large amount of Alaskan issues that you'll be facing when you go to Juneau. And I wish you the best of luck, and I wish you were in my territory. I would definitely be voting for you. And but unfortunately, you're on the wrong side of the valley for me. You hit that Meadow Lakes part. It's unfortunately right where Big Lake begins is where Meadow Lake starts.
True.
And or ends.
Yeah.
And which is your district there, and it goes all the way out to KGB area along that road front there. And I know it's a lot more larger area than just that, but those are the main kind of in between 2 points of all the people that you would be representing out here.
It's a weird shape, so it kind of dies down and comes back from Kinnick, and then it goes up Hatcher Passway and comes back down to it doesn't go to King Arthur Road down the parks, but it goes quite a ways, but it doesn't hit the Big Lake, you know what I mean? It doesn't come up that way, so.
Yeah, I think actually Senator Shower is now our senator for representing here. And
I think so.
Kevin McCabe is who is our current rep here in the Big Lake area for the House district. So it you can really see that defining line to where it is just it is a wonky looking maps that they passed, and it was all to make sure that Anchorage kept their majority control.
They did. They gained a seat. They lost. So the way that all worked out, and I don't understand it, it blows my mind. I thought there should have been way more vocal anger. According to the census, the valley, the Matsu Borough, gained 18,083 people, I think was the number.
Yeah, we should have gained at least one more senator and 2 more House representatives here in the valley, and it should have been lost out of Anchorage.
Yep, and we lost. And so Anchorage lost I think it was just under 9,000, like 8,800. They lost 8,800 people in their population, and they gained a district. And people say, "Oh well, that was Eagle River." Eagle River is in the municipality. They gained a seat. So,
well, speaking of Eagle River, they are less than a month away, from my understanding now, for Eagle Exit. Taking place.
All for
it. They contacted me here the other day to say that they are extremely close to having all of their
good for them
research completed, all of the documentation to prove 100% that they could break apart from Anchorage and take care of themselves.
I think it's good.
And here in about a month, they're supposed to be coming out publicly with all of that information. They don't want. I'm probably spilling news.
You're spilling the news before you should.
Yeah, that they don't want to have out there, but it's. I'm pretty sure that they're not going to get really mad at me for saying something right now.
That's awesome. I think that's really, really, really good news. I'd like to see them get that.
And it would be a great help towards taking control back of the assembly, the school district, and the economy of the money that is flowing through the power struggle within Anchorage.
Yes, it would.
I know NEA of Alaska, the Municipal League, Ramsonson Foundation, and Alaska AFL-CIO is doing everything within their power right now to stop that from happening.
Well, yeah, it's the same like the tax base. Like, what are they going to do?
Yeah, all of a sudden you find
our our California wannabe utopia is dissolving. No way.
Well, the scary part is the high property values start in the Eagle River areas, and
What is that, Skyline Drive?
yeah, and so that completely eliminates all of that big tax revenue that the MOA has become
Yep.
used to spending on themselves, and trickling a small little percentage back out to that area.
That's true. Won't it help the overstressed APD? They won't have to drive all the way out.
Well, they'll have their own police department if they.
That's what I'm saying. So,
yeah.
we won't be. You know, I've always wondered if they were charged, but APD, they come out up the old Glen. There used to be like a little subdivision up there, and they would park their cars in there. I think now they're doing
It's still there.
Let's see. So, like, are they getting that for free? But it'd be interesting to see if they're allowed to do that anymore. They should stop somewhere about that way station, maybe.
It's kind of like why if you wanted to bring police departments into it, where if I was to say, give me another reason why to have the Constitutional Convention, that would be so that we could put it in our Constitution that Alaska now has a sheriff's department.
There's a lot of people that are.
So that way we can actually have accountability for, let's say, like the special session that was called at the beginning of Dunleavy's term, and they were all told to go to to out here to the valley and to hold their sessions, and they didn't show up. Well, our local police, our state troopers, did absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
Our sheriff, though, if we had one, would had gone and shown up and slapping cuffs on every single one of them, dragging each individual right back here to do their job.
Go to LIO or go to the pen? Which one?
Exactly. Yeah, it would give us more control over the actual.
When you look at some of the stuff, do you ever ask yourself, like, like protect and serve? Who and what are you protecting? And who are you serving?
Yes.
Are you serving the ones that write your paycheck, or are you serving us that pay your paycheck?
Neither. In a lot of ways, I feel it's neither, because when you walk, not so much in Alaska, but I'm seeing it's starting to expand a little bit more. But the catch and release, if you're a certain demographics and the rest of you, we're going to lock you up for the rest of your life. Even though out of the two, the ones that they catch and release are killing people, and the ones they locked up is because they didn't wash their hands before they left the bathroom.
They didn't wear a mask.
Correct. Yeah. They didn't get that Fauci out.
You didn't allow that transgender into the bathroom. Just saying. What did they do to the dad whose daughter got raped?
You're the one that got choked.
Just there's some stuff, and we say that we're safe here in Alaska, but there's cancer spreads, poison flows, water takes the easiest path of resistance.
In Matsu, we're semi-protected so far, but if you look at the radical left that's infiltrated Palmer and this Saturday they're having another pro-abortion rally where they're going to be marching with signs in front of all of the businesses in Palmer.
Well, yeah, okay.
I mean and they don't hesitate. The Moms for Social Justice, those folks. I mean,
if you can't, like,
Dave Fuller.
There's no way we can have an honest debate on that issue while one side lies and just says that it's not a life. If I can't crack open an eagle egg without getting in trouble, that's not an eagle. That's an egg white and a yolk.
Yep.
By your thought process. So it's a life. Just be honest. And then tell us, we want it to be the, blessed ending, quality of life beginning removal,
They're no more better than an animal that's a cow.
Justifiable homicide. Call it whatever you want, and then we can have a debate on it. But until then, it's just this meandering crap of trying to stand on children and play their heartstrings and say, it's not a child.
I think it's Wyoming. I'm not quite sure. I want to say it's Wyoming that just recently passed that you can
Yeah.
claim your fetus on your tax returns once there's a heartbeat detected.
Wow, that's pretty good. There was a state, Mississippi, Missouri. One. I think it's one of those two. They just allowed their teachers to go to school armed. They allowed them to carry in the class or some. I want to say Missouri, but I'm not sure. I remember because it was like Missouri or Mississippi.
Well, again, thank you so much,
Thank you.
Brenden Carpenter, for being here today, running for House District number 27,
Sure.
KGB to Big Lake, kind of skirts us around the Big Lake area, heads into Houston, goes as far as
Go to Division of
Willow
Elections and
and-
get a map.
I think Talkeetna area too is also maybe included a little bit into
No.
your.
No,
No, not quite that far.
not that far. So I would say go to Division of Elections and get a map. You can go online and you can get a map and you can look at it. So it basically follows the parks all the way down. It butts up to KGB, and it goes to Hatcher's Pass, like just beyond Schrock Pittman Road on the other side, and it comes back around. It doesn't go all the way to King Arthur Road, but it goes quite a ways down the parks.
And I do wish you the best of luck.
I appreciate it.
And it's been wonderful having this interview for you.
I enjoyed it. It's fun.
If and when you make it through the primary here, which I'll guarantee that you will.
I will.
There is no ifs,
I'll
ands, or
guarantee
buts.
it, I
I
will.
know you're going to be in the general election.
There's three of us, so we'll make it.
I would love to sit down with you at a later date and time when it gets closer to
Okay.
before it's time to vote.
Let's do it.
And have another discussion, and
Yep.
we'll stay less off of the diverse topics
Okay.
that does not focus strictly on Alaska,
Be
and
more specific.
we'll make sure that is a 100% about Alaska.
Okay.
Today, as you know as well as I do, it was important for people to get to know who you are, hear your thoughts, more than just on the Alaskan level, but on a
Okay.
national level also.
Okay.
So they get a more of a feeling based of where you stand all the way around, give you a more fuller picture, because I know that mainstream loves to just focus on their little tiny windows and pick one topic that makes you look like the worst evil vile person in the world and say this is you and 100% you. And today was a great opportunity to show that you're a very well-rounded person. You are not ignorant to the issues that are going on out there.
Good. Woo!
There is still a lot of gaps within, but that is not uncommon for someone that doesn't spend 24/7 watching politics in Alaska like I do.
Yep.
And
That's what I meant. Like, there's a lot of things that I will learn and can learn. And taking this position, I believe that there's some things that can't be, and I think that that's proven out in the way we see the individuals that are running.
And I'm going to have a little bit of fun here. Is do you want the blue pill or do you want the red pill?
Can I choose for real?
You can choose for real.
I'll take the red, white, and blue pill.
The red, white, and blue. Okay, you will take the all-American pill, the major cure-all for everything. Vote for those that are for all of
Amen.
America and Americans, not
America
just
first.
a political party.
Make America great again. Make Alaska great.
Well, thank you again for your time, and I really do appreciate it. And I'm going
To
to
all
give
the people that stayed, I appreciate it. Thank you for giving me your time. I really do appreciate it, getting to know me, and I gave you the ways to get in touch with me. If you've got any concerns or any more questions, let me know.
That was Brenden Carpenter, who is running for House District 27. If you haven't liked and shared this video by now, what is your problem? Seriously, what is your problem? I mean, do we need to have a long, detailed, heartfelt talk why that is a problem? Or are you going to do the right thing right now? Give a thumbs up on this video and share it so that more Alaskans can learn about the candidates that are running in our current and upcoming elections. This is no exception to that, and I do appreciate everybody that has been here today. Please, again, make sure to like and share this video, and if you want to see more of these, go to my website, Politadick.com, click that support button. All proceeds goes right back into doing what I'm doing. It helps pay for the restream services that you are watching this video on right now. You could be on YouTube, you might be on Twitter right now, you might be on Politadick on Facebook, or on Politadick Unfiltered on Facebook, watching this video. And it's because of supporters like you that made that possible. I want to keep expanding what I do. I would love to find ourselves also streaming direct live to Rumble. But that costs money, and I'm not a rich person. I never have been. I never plan on being a rich person. I like being me and being self-sufficient and taking care of my family and my life. But there is one goal that I would love to achieve. And if we could get all 5,000 of you to donate just $5 a month, I will completely quit my job, my company. I will fold my doors, close my doors permanently forever, and I will become the political dick here in Alaska that finds myself sitting down in Juneau when they are in legislative session, sitting in the halls, waiting for them to come out of their committee meetings, waiting for them to come off of floor sessions, demanding interviews from each and every one of them, asking them the tough, hard questions that our mainstream media are too much cowards to do themselves. You will find people sitting in Anchorage waiting for those special assembly meetings, the ones like they just had on Monday, that gave themselves overriding power of the governor or the mayor there, Mayor Bronson. They took the veto that he had done for their impeachment powers, and they, behind closed doors, overrode his veto, a vote of 9-3, and gave them the powers to hold impeachment power, sole discretion of the assembly only, avoiding the MOA's constituents' voices and votes for who they elected, and gave themselves unilateral power to remove the mayor for anything they consider a just cause. Tomorrow I am going to be in Anchorage. Pay attention, keep your ears out for that notification. It should be coming and happening sometime right about 2 o'clock. There is a referendum that is going to be filed at the Alaska Clerk's office in regards to that impeachment powers that they gave them. Anchorage MOA residents are not sitting by idly and allowing this corrupt body of assembly members get away with what they are doing. And for me to be able to be there, I am literally driving all the way out from Big Lake to there with my own money, buying the gas. And it's something that I can't personally afford. It's especially at today's current prices, it makes it difficult to be able to afford to do these things. And your support would make that so much more easier. In fact, it would get to the point that, again, if I was to get all 5,000 of you to donate $5 a month, you would find that anytime there is an assembly meeting, a school board meeting, a rally, a forum, anything that is of political concern that you would expect mainstream media to show up to, but they don't, I would have someone sitting there doing it. Guaranteed. People would be in Fairbanks, they'd be in Juneau, they would be everywhere out there doing everything they possibly could to make sure that us Alaskans are as formed as possible. Just like the school board meeting that happened yesterday, there would have been somebody there. Just like that special assembly meeting that they had sitting in Anchorage where they overrode the veto of the mayor there would have been somebody there demanding to live stream it, because they made sure YouTube didn't work so that nobody here in Alaska was able to preview or hear anything that they had done. They gave a real grainy, really hard to hear and understand recording of what they did behind closed doors, but that is not being a part of open and honest relationship our government is supposed to have with us, their constituents, and that needs to change, and your support can make that happen. So please go to the website, Politadick.com. Everything helps, whether it's $5 a month, $100 a month, whatever you can afford to give. Like I said, if just $5 a month from all 5,000 of you right now, I would quit what I am doing, and you would find this company completely explode, and you would find live streams probably running darn near 24/7 a day here out of Alaska as we are live streaming in one location or another, whatever the next event that is going on that is of the biggest concerns within our local and state government. Thank you all for being here. Remember to like and share. Like and share.